Welcome to Tom Talks. Join me once a week right here on Tom Boley YouTube channel. We're going to break down all the latest and greatest walleye fishing tips, walleye fishing tricks, the absolute location where these fish are right now, and all the practical relevant information you want and need. Hooked up. And look at that, just gone. For all the information you want and need, stay tuned right here once a week, Tom Talks. What is going on, guys? Today we are back with another video, and yes, we are inside today. We are not out on the lake, but that does not mean that we are not talking ice fishing. Today we're going to go over some of the most commonly asked questions on the YouTube page regarding ice fishing, right? And we should probably do these more often. Every time I do a Tom Talks, I feel like I spin it in a different direction. I kind of wanted to do one of these like every week, and it's kind of turned into like whenever I get a day at home, which isn't very often, but we'll still do the best to answer a ton of your guys' ice fishing questions in this video. Most of the time, most of the videos I make are based on questions that you guys have, and so is this one, obviously. So hopefully a lot of you guys will get some beneficial information out of this one, and hopefully it's just a fun video for a lot of you guys, whether you've been ice fishing for a while or just getting into ice fishing, right? So we're gonna dig right into it. It's kind of, for us, for me anyways, it's kind of that midwinter time now. I've been ice fishing for about a month and a half, and I'm only going to be ice fishing until like early March. Then I need to get back in a boat, but it's kind of that midwinter time, so we're kind of, for me anyways, halfway through the ice season, or at least getting close to being halfway through the ice season. And yeah, like I said, we're going to dig into it. First, most commonly asked question on the YouTube page is the boxes on my snowmobile. What are these boxes? How did I mount them and stuff like that? Well, they're actually called, I gotta look at the name again, Contico boxes. I'll throw a link down in the description if you want to check it out, and here's a little flashy whatever of what they look like. But basically, if you're gonna mount boxes on your ATV or snowmobile or anything, you need very rigid boxes. I've learned this over the years. Number one, because as that stuff gets really cold, it's gonna be much easier to break if it's not brittle. And number two, they need to be very strong for mounting reasons, because you're going to definitely be hitting a lot of bumps, and those things are going to be jostling around. So these boxes are fully lockable, everything like that. Now my snowmobile is a 2-up snowmobile, which I removed the back seat of, and I basically built a big steel frame under it, right? And those boxes, I want to say they're like 20 inches by like 37 inches long, so they're big boxes. But when you do a lot of running and gun fishing like I do, you gotta have something where you can store stuff easily like that. If every time you go out you're cramming stuff into your sled, it works all right if you're on like a smaller lake where you're maybe going a couple hundred yards to a spot, but that stuff on long runs across big water gets so beat up if it rides in a sled, you almost have to put it in boxes like that. So the biggest thing is obviously mounting. It's a lot easier on a four-wheeler to mount something like that because you already have a rack system in place, but definitely take your time or find somebody who custom does it, because having that stuff very securely and permanently mounted on there is a game changer. Otherwise you're just going to hate yourself for even getting those boxes and having them on there. But I always do this kind of aggressive hole hopping thing. It probably doesn't look like it as much in the YouTube videos because we do a lot more shack fishing now, and that's mainly due to the fact that it's just so much easier to film in a shack, and for underwater stuff it's just so much easier to have, you know, one camera, one hole, and you know, one person fishing there. A lot of the videos might be like Shelby or Mitch, who's actually in the shack doing the fishing, and then I might be running around like just hole hopping like a madman. That's just how I like to fish. I like to be on the move, go. I hate being inside fishing in a shack. I like doing that kind of mobile fishing stuff. So whenever you get a new machine, if you're looking to use it kind of solely for that purpose, either, you know, pretty much ice fishing, definitely think about storage. You got to have an auger mount on there. You want to have a lot of storage options for putting flashers, minnow buckets, you know, all your spare stuff you're going to need when you pull up to a new spot and start to fish. So that's kind of how I always do it. I used to be a four-wheeler guy, and I moved to a snowmobile, and I'm so much happier. It's just so much quicker going places. They're meant to run when it's 20, 25 below outside, and it's just, I don't know, I'm just much happier having a snowmobile, and next year we'll definitely be running a snowmobile again. So that's kind of my take on that. But if you fish somewhere where there's never a lot of snow, then you can be a four-wheeler guy, right? I just got sick of getting stuck all the time. Some winters, this winter is incredibly mild, but a lot of winters, you know, we're dealing with deep snow and heavy slush everywhere. And even this winter, you know, we don't have a lot of snow, but we do have some slush, and you know, it's just so much quicker and more efficient, in my opinion, having a snowmobile. The other thing you want on your machine is definitely going to be like some kind of GPS thing, so you can look at your lake map, you can see your waypoints, and it's very quick. You know, you're not diddling around on your phone trying to find your whatever waypoint. Having something permanently mounted with your summer waypoints on there goes a long way. So yeah, that's kind of question one. Hopefully some of you guys, you get the Contigo stock will probably go up today, thanks to you guys. But that's what I run on there. Now question number two. I gotta drink some coffee here and see what the other question was. Oh yeah, it was about gloves and what I wear for gloves. And like I said, I like to do a lot of this run around fishing, so I pretty much always want my hands free. But I wear fingerless wool gloves 99% of the time. I'll wear like a heavier glove. So I pretty much wear like large or extra larges for the most part. So I'll buy a tight fitting wool fingerless glove, and I'll link these ones down below, but I mean wool gloves are kind of wool gloves. And then basically I'll buy this in the tightest size I can find, and then I'll go up to like a 2X and I'll buy a really heavy mitt glove, right? That I can throw over this, like if it's really cold out or if I'm working on stuff or if I'm like running across the lake, right? But the biggest key to having, staying warm under the ice is sealing out all of the air. And the biggest thing one of the most helpful things I wear is this thing right here. Now this is, you probably can't see it because I have this Eskimo shirt over it, but this is the Simms Extreme base layer, and it's got a neck gaiter built into it. It also has a hood that's built into that. And it also has these thumb deals right here, right? Which you're starting to see a lot of companies start to do. But if you're just wearing normal gloves, you obviously normally have that seam right between the glove and your wrist, right? Well, what I do is, because these things have this thumb warmer, I take that and I put it right over like that. So it almost looks like, my gloves are pretty much locked to my hand, and it keeps all that cold air out. Also, the best thing about wool is even if it gets wet, it still stays warm. And this is pretty much what I wear 99% of the time out on the ice. So I'll link this this Simms Extreme base layer down below. I wear pretty much all Simms stuff for my layering stuff, and I have a pretty good system in place. I wear this thing, and then I normally might wear like something like this Eskimo one, but then I wear it's called Primaloft. It's like a tight fitting puff jacket, with down jacket. And then over that I wear like a windbreak, which is like the Simms, I forget what they call that one, but I'll link it down below too. And that's kind of what I wear. I don't dress super bulky. I normally don't wear jackets. I just hate feeling like constricted out on the ice. And a lot of the ice fishing jackets are just so heavy, they're hard to wear. But yeah, I wear pretty much a base layer. This is my glove system right here. These wool ones with the thumb hole on the Simms Extreme base layer. And yeah, that's kind of the deal right there. And yeah, what are we talking about next? Where are we going from here? Oh, we were talking about how do you know when you come to a new lake what is the most likely lure to get bites versus the most likely lure to find fish? It's a good question, and that one came up on a Mille Lacs video we recently did where I was talking about gridding out huge areas of holes, right? And if you fish like little Midwest lakes that are like 1,000 acres, you probably don't fish this way. But when you start getting on big bodies of water, that are 5, 6, 20, 100,000 acre type lakes, and you're talking about fishing these huge flat areas, the difference between what I do in northern Wisconsin a lot of times is I'm fishing a very small isolated sweet spot on a larger spot where I know when those fish are using that spot, they're using that isolated spot. Well, on a lot of these very huge lakes, what you might have is these high spot flats or mud flats or sand flats or gravel flats that are just like, half a mile long, 2 miles long, whatever, huge spots. And the reason we grid out these massive holes is because even if there is a sweet spot, there's still a lot more fish there than that. So it takes these, you gotta try to emulate being in a boat. If you're in a boat, you don't just drive up to a huge spot and park right in one area of it without looking at it and start to fish, right? You always want to look to find fish first. And in order to do that, emulate that on the ice, we have to drill a ton of holes to go through a lot of this stuff. And gosh, where did this question even start? Oh yeah, baits. And when it comes to trying to process that amount of water very quickly, yes, with a live scope, can you put down and see fish if they're off bottom? Yeah, you can. Can you do the same thing with a flasher? It might take you a little bit more time, absolutely. But you want to, a lot of times ice fishing for walleyes, you have to put a bait down in order to see what's around, right? Those fish might be very, very tight to bottom, and when you put a bait down, those fish elevate, and then you see them a lot better, right? And the same thing applies for live scope or flasher, really. And a lot of times when I'm trying to process this water very quickly, I go with a bait like an Acme Hyper Rattle. And I don't know if I have any sitting here right now, but it's basically, you guys have seen me use it a ton. It's it's like a jig, it's similar to like a jigging wrap or a Moonshine Lures shiver minnow, and walks a big circle. It's a very aggressive very roaming bait for ice fishing. And what that does is it calls a lot of fish in very quickly from a long ways, and it makes them elevate. And a lot of times I'll fish that bait way higher than I would normally fish that bait to try to get bit. And what I mean by that is, most of the time if we're jigging walleyes, we're trying to fish like, a foot to like 3 feet off bottom, because a lot of times those fish will elevate, they'll pop up 6 inches to a foot, and then you talk those fish into biting right from there on out. And the reason I'll fish this bait so high is because I want fish from anywhere around me to be able to see that. And a lot of times what you see when that bait's like, let's say you're fishing 29 feet of water and you're fishing that bait 8 feet off bottom, is a fish gonna fly up and bite it? Maybe if it's super aggressive, but a lot of times what happens is you'll see that fish coming in and it'll start flickering under you, and that's just because those fish can see that thing from so far away that it helps to kind of get looked at that way and at least get an idea of how many fish there are on that spot. Now, a lot of times if that fish comes in and he sits there, if you're working the bait 9-10 feet up and that fish comes in there and elevates a foot, you drop down to him and then work that fish, and then he'll come up and bite if he won't come up 10 feet and bite. But that's kind of the reason I do something like that, especially if I'm not sure if there's fish there, if I'm trying to process water very quickly. Now, if they don't bite that hyper rattle, next thing to do is normally go down to like a spoon, something a little bit more up and down, poundy, with a less of that crazy hopping around wild action, right? And yeah, that's kind of the deal, processing water very quickly. It takes a bait you can fish very fast, you can drop very fast, you don't need bait on it, and has a high likelihood of getting bit. If they don't bite that and you have to go to something that's probably for sure going to get a bite, you normally go with something like a spoon, or something a little bit more stationary up and down without all that crazy stuff. So that's kind of my take on that. And what is our next question? We had another question for sure here. Oh, one question we always get is rods, reels, line rigging, and stuff like that. And you guys probably know that I've been fishing with the Elliott Evolution series for most of the winter, and a lot of you guys who have probably not fished a rod this long are probably going to think it's weird. But once you start using it, you'll be just addicted to it. You don't even want to go to anything shorter. This rod bag, I guess, would be getting a lot of questions on as well. This is the 2B Ice rod bag, and they make two sizes. I'll link it down below. If you're a guy who has a lot of rods, like 36 inches and shorter, go with the short one. If you want to run these long rods that are 40 inches plus, go with these longer ones. So these three rods have pretty much taken the place. This is all I want to use, right? I find myself almost never going for my shorter, like 30-inch rods anymore. This one's kind of all tangled up, but this is the 42-inch medium, and this is kind of like my butt-kicking heavy-duty walleye rod, which is just all incredibly tangled up right now. I guess you guys will know this wasn't thought out very well at this point, but that's kind of how this channel is. It's just kind of like we go and we do whatever we feel like and whatever you guys kind of ask for. But anyways, this rod, this is the 42-inch medium. It's the stiffest rod in the Evolution series, and this is kind of going to be like your heavier action walleye rod. Probably most of you guys who are looking for a rod that's exclusively going to be walleye related, this is the rod you're going to go with. And because of that, I work a lot of my hyper rattles and heavier stuff where I'm on a lake that is probably going to have mostly larger fish in it, 20 inches plus. This is the rod I go with. And because of that, I put on 8-pound ice braid. And I think this is the Suffix ice braid. Does braid ice up more than mono? Absolutely does. But I tie in probably like a 3 to like 5-6 foot, depending on how clear lake is I'm on, 8-pound fluorocarbon or 10-pound fluorocarbon, depending on like how aggressive I plan on fishing. And like I said, this is the rod that's kind of like the heavier duty. Most of you guys who are looking for a walleye rod, you're probably gonna go with that. And the Pissy Fun Carbon X 1000 on there. And kind of the rod, which I am surprised by how much I'm using this one. This is the 44-inch light, or yeah, this is a light action rod. It's still got ice on the tip. And this rod loads up much more. It loads very deep into the rod, and it's almost got like, if any of you guys are familiar with like the quick tips, it's kind of like a quick tip action on this thing. It's got play in it, but it's not like a crappie rod, you know what I'm saying? It makes it great like if you're fishing for exclusively 15-inch crappies with bigger baits. It's a great rod for that. It's a great perch rod for a lot of your spoons, and it's a great walleye rod too. And one of the reasons I think this line is so great is because it's difficult to take a 30-inch walleye rod and load it like that to have that correct load on there. And the reason you want a rod to load, why do you catch so many more fish in a boat and lose so few? It's because you have a 7-foot rod that has room to load up in it. When ice rods are 30 inches long, they don't load deep enough into the rod to hold a lot of those fish. And we've all been there where you hook a walleye, you get it right to the bottom of the hole, and it starts doing these big violent head shakes, and your 30-inch rod is going like this, and then slack, like this, and then slack, like that, and then slack, because there's not enough rod. When fish head shake on a 44-inch rod, it looks like that. That rod is always loaded up and can hold those fish. You know, you lose fish when those fish do that big head shake, and then your rod goes slack on a shorter rod, right? And that's kind of my favorite part about these longer rods and their actions. But this is a great spoon rod. Kind of 1/4 ounce, you're probably gonna feel like you're fishing too light of a rod. But for a lot of your 1/8 ounce stuff, 12th ounce stuff that a lot of us are using, this is gonna be a great option right here. And this is the Acme Castmaster in the tungsten version here. So yeah, that's kind of that. And in this rod I go with mono and fluorocarbon. This is 6-pound fluorocarbon. If you take this rod, there's no way you're gonna be able to break 6 pound on a hook set with this thing. It just loads up too much, and it's kind of that perfect, honestly. If you jig a lot of Wisconsin walleyes, this is probably the rod. If you want kind of like that all around longer rod to kind of fish perch or big crappies or walleyes or, you know, anything like that. I also think it's going to be a great like brown trout rod on Lake Superior because it loads up so much for those big violent head shakes and runs, and you can get away with fishing light line on this because it is so spongy. Just a great rod overall. These rods are also just feather light and just, you know, everything else about them is great. But you know, having that action right where you want it at a longer rod is really what separates it from a lot of your shorter rods. And then the other one I use, this is kind of like my panfish rod right here. And but it's also kind of multi-applicational as well, which is something when they started sending over these longer rods is something that I was pretty impressed with. It's just all the rods seem like they can do several things, and that's what you get when you start making rods in a longer size. And I think you're going to see a lot of companies start going to this because it just makes sense. And the whole run and gun approach to ice fishing that everybody's kind of after is just kind of like it's super trendy right now, right? You're seeing less and less people kind of go out, drill a hole, and fish all day. You're seeing a lot more guys kind of understand that it's running around, it's being mobile, it ultimately catches fish. And anyways, this rod is their 44-inch ultralight. Now it's got that crappie noodle rod tip on it, right? But it transfers in a lot of backbone. You can see the way that rod loads up right there. It's very similar. Imagine if you cut this rod in half right here, and it would be a 28-inch noodle rod, right? You have a lot of very spongy tip load that transfers into a lot of backbone. But because you have so much more backbone in a longer rod like this, it's obviously, you could do several things with it. I use it a lot as a dead stick rod, because a lot of times you put it in a rod holder and you watch that tip go, and the fish kind of load up on themselves like that and end up hooking themselves. You run over to it, set the hook, and reel them in. This one I run 4-pound test. I actually switch back and forth on spools like this. I also have a rod that has 2-pound test on here too if I'm going for a lot of those very finicky fish. But on this rod you can fish anything, like I said, from a dead stick, you know, for like walleyes or perch or crappies, to a lot of times what I use this for most of the time is fishing, you know, your 3 to 5 mil tungsten jigs for crappies or bluegills or stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of that. And you know, I can't say enough about the longer rods. They're just so much fun to fish with, and so much easier to use if you're a run and gun pole hopping guy. And are they maybe a little bit extreme for somebody who fishes in a tight shack? Maybe. But I still think you're going to catch more fish on these just because they have the right load. And yeah, that's kind of that. What is our next question here? I got to pull this rod bag down. It's got a million jigs and spoons in there. What was our next question? Oh, underwater camera. Another thing we just get asked a ton of questions on. I've said it a whole bunch, so most of you probably know what this is. This is the Markham Pursuit HD underwater camera. It's a small handheld sized one. I can tell you I'll never go back to running like the huge, big, massive cameras. I just move around too much. They take up too much room, and they use way more battery and everything like that. But you know, obviously HD footage. Obviously the footage we filmed on this has just been incredible. Even in lakes that are not incredibly clear. My favorite feature of this, of all the features, if you're a guy who records or just likes to watch back a lot of what you do, the recording process for a lot of cameras is difficult. A lot of times it'll take basically an HDMI cord to like an external recorder, and this is what I used to do, and then an SD card, And then you need to power that external recorder with a battery bank with another cord. So it's kind of a series of things in which you need to record. This one, you pop a memory card on the side. I put in a 128 gig so I can pretty much film for, you know, a whole day if I need to. It just goes right in the side. Super easy to put in, super easy to take out. You close that up, you turn it on, you hit record, and you're recording, right? Now, if you're gonna get an underwater camera, get a panner for it. And that's basically what a panner is. It's a remote fob where you put the cord in there and then it'll automatically spin kind of whichever way you want. And it'll make your life so much easier, right? And yeah, you know, this thing is just so mobile. I actually put it right in my camera box with all my cameras and stuff and pull it out good to go. The other cool part is obviously this is a rechargeable battery in here. And you know, it'll last for a long time, especially if you're fishing in a shack, which if you're running an underwater camera, you probably are. But give me 1 second here. You know, if you're gonna run this thing for like days on end, or if you're somebody like me who just like always forgets to recharge their stuff, what you can do, I run just a million of these power banks like this, mostly for my GoPros, my camera batteries and everything like that. But just plug it in, get your micro USB port, plug that into here, and you can literally run this thing for like days on end. And you can see you can probably see that red light that says it's charging right now. So a lot of times I'll just get this thing set up like this and you got, you know, days of runtime now. So yeah, that's kind of my favorite part about this thing. Obviously it's a phenomenal underwater camera and it just works incredibly well. But yeah, that's kind of what I got. Those are the most common questions in which you guys have for me at this time. Maybe we'll do another one of these next week, we'll see. I gotta pack some stuff up and get on the road because I need to get on the ice. I fish every day, and every day it'll be like noon and I'll be like, oh, I'll be, you know, I gotta get out there, But anyways, I do appreciate you guys watching this video, and thanks for watching all the ice fishing content. If you're not yet, please subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot, and hopefully this channel helps you guys out a lot. So be safe out there on the ice, catch a bunch of fish, and we'll see you guys next time.